Welcome to this week's installment. Today and tomorrow in Scottsdale. Don Henniger. I'm Don. With me as always is my podcast partner and man who always sits tall in the saddle.
I thought you could say cowpoke.
I was thinking about cowpoke, but I like the vision of you sitting in the saddle.
I do too.
When I saw pictures from you on a Charros ride, I go, man, that's Kevin, all right, buddy.
Either you ride the horse rides you. Right?
I just felt sorry for the horse. That's all I'm thinking about, right? But Kevin, we got two great guests today. They're here to talk about an after-school program called Horsense that engages children in learning about respect and responsibility and character development. It's held at McDonald's Ranch in Scottsdale, and it's run by the nonprofit organization Health World Education, which provides health and safety programs for kids through the 8th grade. And with us today are Peter Rusin, he's the executive director of Health World, and Alan Rodbell, who we all remember as the former Scottsdale police chief, and he's one of Horsense's main sponsors. Welcome, gentlemen. Great to see you both today.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you doing it with us.
Kevin, this is another story of a positive jewel in our city that we love to shine the light on about all the good work that's happening here, and this is a perfect example of that. And I love the way the story of how this all got started. And Peter, you were there at the beginning, so tell us about how it all unfolded and how it got started.
Well, there was a gentleman who was a Scottsdale Charo. His name was Jeremy Cohn. He came to me when I moved out here to work on children health programs. And he came to me with an idea. He said, let's have some coffee. And I want to talk to you about a vision that I have of developing a program for kids who would not have the financial opportunity to participate in the equestrian sport. Now, there's a couple of issues that I have. I have no horses. I have no money. I have no plan or location.
Other than that,
let's talk about it. And I think that was so important because we used that phrase of Jeremy Cohn's to the kids out at camp, saying, you may have obstacles in your life, but never let them stand in your way of achieving what your goal is. And later on, I could tell you an anecdotal story that we have from one of our first campers. But anyhow, so Jeremy and I had coffee. He said, well, write up a white paper, and we could try to figure out the rest of it. So with that, I put some heads together, realized that parents wouldn't want to bring kids or their children out to someone's personal backyard. So we needed a location that would be identifiable and felt safe. And so the first thing that I came up with was the old Rawhide. Great location, Western theme. It would have a great background and setting. The second, we needed horses. So we researched. They were an outfitter for the Scottsdale Charros ride.
Okay, yeah.
They were up in Sedona, Trail Horse Adventure, with Lorinda and Tom Yoke. They agreed to provide us 12 kid-friendly horses. And they actually brought them down to us from the Sedona area. With that, I realized that the transportation every week was very questionable with Highway 17. And so I said, we need a home for these. So I went to Victor, who was the general manager at Rawhide at the time. And I asked him, I said, could we use a facility? Can we use your facility before you open? Because the camp is from basically 8 o'clock to 12. The kids arriving at 9. We have to do the setup. And I basically asked him, could you give us the keys to Rawhide before you're open? Because we want to do this program.
That's pretty cool.
And he actually laughed just like you chuckled,
right.
saying, are you kidding me? But then, perseverance kind of, played out. And he said, well, who's sponsoring you? I said, well, the Scottsdale Charros are behind this. And they said, well, okay, we know that group. They're a good group. They do a lot for charity. And so we'll give you a chance. But if I catch anybody running down the main street, our security people, you're in big trouble. And so
we're in a clean town here.
Yeah, that's right. We don't want any hanky-panky.
That's why the chief's sitting here.
Exactly. So we had a location. We had horses. Jeremy went to the Scottsdale Charros and asked them for the initial funding. And so with those three things, we then created a partnership with the school district. And the fourth component of it was we knew that the program itself was basic riding, using the horse as the hook to instill confidence and leadership and self-esteem. But we also knew that no one knew who Peter Rusin was in the equestrian world. So we went out and we got a 25, or he's now about 40 two-time world champion to endorse our program.
Okay.
And so once that was done, we said, all right, we have all the components that should work. And so we, for the first 2 years, we were out at Rawhide doing our program. The difficulty there was we had to carry everything in from the parking lot to our site where the corral was. And so if you could imagine, we needed a lot of volunteers. We were mounting blocks, ground poles, safety vests, helmets, all the props that we use. And so that was kind of a challenge, but we did it, and it was successful. What happened was when we heard that Rawhide sold out and they were closing, we thought that was going to be the end of the program. We said, all right, we had a few good years. We've impacted some children, had a lot of fun doing it. But the nice people at McDonald's Ranch, Robbie and Sylvia, they were just wonderful. They called me and said, we hear you're looking for a new home. And the Richardson family greeted us. They showed us a location, and they said, you could have anything west of this road.
That's pretty nice.
I mean, it was really it inspired us to re-energize ourselves, to say, you know what, if they heard about the program and they thought it was good and they're willing to offer us their horses and their location in an arena for us to use, this could be really good.
So you mentioned volunteers too. Let's let Alan weigh in. I'd love to know how you got involved with that when you came on board.
First of all, every time I hear Peter speak, I'm both inspired and just amazed and impressed.
I agree.
This obviously is a labor of love that he's carried on for 2 decades now. But our first meeting occurred early on in my career here as a chief. Peter came into the office with a gentleman by the name of John Beard. And John was recently passed. John was, I think he was in charge of student programming at SUSD. And John brought, first time I had met him, Peter came in, we introduced each other. And Peter and John had this idea of putting bumper stickers on police cars, this whole concept of how do you serve, to get young folks and even adults interested in providing some kind of service, volunteerism. And they wanted to put them on the back of police cars. And I immediately threw them both out of the office because I said,
how'd that fly?
I said, it's called police car, not NASCAR. Yeah. We don't put stickers on the car. And so as I was tossing them out of the office, I said, what else you got? And Peter mentioned this Horsense program, which was relatively new. And my wife and I had just relocated here, but my wife was looking for something to do, and we are horse people. And so I said, well, that sounds like the perfect opportunity for my wife, Debbie, to get involved in a program that she would really enjoy. And so introducing my wife into the program, she became an early on volunteer. She worked through the Rawhide years with Peter. And there were some challenging years because weather-wise and otherwise, there were things to overcome there. I did not volunteer at that time. I had a foursome of really bad golfers that would only play with each other, and we would get thrown off of some really nice courses. Yeah. And unfortunately, sooner or later, one day, that foursome broke up as a result of retirements and people maturing. And so we ended up with free Saturdays. And once I had a free Saturday, sitting on the couch watching whatever I was watching, my wife determined that I was not going to sit there and enjoy the Saturday morning without
Motivation.
her. I was off to volunteering. And so I came into the program probably a year after my wife, and I've been there ever since. But I will tell you that we look forward so much to the opportunity to be out there with these young people that don't have this opportunity. And the volunteers that Peter and the staff have attracted to the program are dedicated young folks. They're all horse lovers. They're
Multi-generational.
multi-generational at this point. There was a program in SUSD that may or may not be getting off the ground again soon, and I would hope they reconsider it, which was surface learning. And so we had students out there who were helping us out, keeping the kids entertained between the other activities that they were involved in. And Peter will talk about the program in a little bit, but it was an opportunity to give young people an opportunity to learn volunteer spirit and also get credit for college or recommendations for jobs in the future. And so it was a program that encompassed so much of the community with a full attention to making sure the young people that don't have opportunities could be in an equestrian activity that was really safe, built their self-confidence, built friendships where a lot of them didn't have a lot of friends, and you'd see transition from the first day to the final day when they're performing at graduation for their parents. That would bring tears to your eyes.
So I was going to say, Kevin, this is why we do these things, right?
Exactly. This is another of a long list of stories. A couple weeks ago we had the soccer from Cornell. We got so much feedback on what a great story, and this story it goes right along with the foottails of that. Great. Yep. So level set for us a little bit, because we've been talking about what a great program and the history and the makings of this program. Where are we at today for our listeners who are still confused about what Horsense is today? Saturdays, a couple over series Saturdays.
We do it during the school year because of the weather.
Right.
So from September, early October through March or April, part of April, we plan it out. We invite the community as well as schools to participate. So the camp is divided into two groups. When the children arrive, they're all greeted. You've been on the Charo ride, and how you're greeted.
That's my favorite part.
Yeah,
the
greeting.
Yeah.
We do that every morning for the kids when they get off the buses or they arrive. We then feed them. We give them a cowboy breakfast, which no matter what we serve, always tastes great in the desert.
It always does.
It always does. And so after they're fed, they're divided into two groups. One group goes to the arena, and then they learn the riding skills. And the second group goes to the education area, where we teach them life skill programs. We'll do things on desert survival. The Scottsdale Fire Department comes out. They talk about that. We have an art program. We either do painted horses or we handcraft horseshoes and decorate them. We have a retired art director from Desert Mountain High School that comes out religiously every Saturday, and she's excited about new things that she's bringing to the program. We also partner up with Liberty Wildlife and the Phoenix Herpetological, and so those two opportunities teach the kids about the birds that are out in the desert. And then the reptiles that are in the desert. Yeah. And it's really fascinating, the things that they learn and they understand by just being exposed to those things. We then have a break, and then we flip the class and we do it again. And so kids arrive around 9 o'clock, 9:15, and then we religiously end at noon because parents have other things to do in the day. Yeah. And same with the volunteers. We respect the volunteers. But it's a great afternoon. Ellen and I get to be cowboys one day a week. And
so is this one Saturday? So the next Saturday is a different group of kids coming then?
No, it's actually 5 Saturdays in a row.
Okay, so they stay together for 5 weeks. They start and they go through 5 weeks of this. Okay.
And they graduate.
Oh, okay.
And the nice part about it is a lot of times we'll have volunteers from the Scottsdale Police Department come out. And some of those are associated with the mounted unit.
Oh, great.
So
sure.
We've been very fortunate that they've attended all our graduations. And when the children see the volunteers on horseback now in uniform, it really bridges the gap
That's
that they have.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Alan could speak to that.
The only thing I would add to that is that we have a lot of volunteers of both fire personnel and police personnel from Scottsdale Police and Fire. But also we have a program where the fire department comes out religiously, and does a safety in the neighborhood, first aid, life in the desert, just to prepare them in case they're walking and have an injury of sorts, or a friend that has an injury of sorts. So we do a lot of life skills kinds of opportunities for them, and knowing about wildlife, as well as getting familiar with the horse, getting confident riding the horse, and then performing for their parents and showing how much they've grown. And I think consistently, one of the things that keeps us coming back is that first week. You see the young folks are a little intimidated. They're a little leery. They don't want to get involved. They don't know anybody, and oftentimes they're very well supervised, but they just don't feel they're not in a comfort zone by any means. Yeah. And by week 5, it's like. But every week you hear, I couldn't wait to get back. And then in week 5, is there any chance you could do this again? Is there a graduate program? Right. It's like, with next group of kids.
How many kids go through the 5-week program then?
So every camp is between 24 and 28 students.
Okay.
And that seems to be a manageable group size. Our field trips that we started this year, we actually saw about 100 kids every Friday. And those represented the Cave Creek School District.
Okay.
And that was a really neat initiative that they came to us with. Patty Jensen at the school district said, we're looking for a field trip in which it could talk about the environment, about our Western heritage, and we think based on what you're doing at Horsense, you're the perfect person for us to do this field trip with. And so we threw it together. We experimented this spring, and they're signed up for next year.
Wow. How many Fridays is that?
Well, that was 5 Fridays.
Okay.
So we saw about 500 children, and we now posed it to a few other school districts, and they may be joining us.
Wow.
These are kids through the 8th grade, basically, up to the 8th grade?
These were 4th and 5th graders.
4th and 5th graders, okay.
So each district or school could pick a different grade, but the programs are based for that 10, 11-year-old.
Right.
And so we tie into what they're teaching in school on the environment and the ecosystem, and then we try to map that to stations out at our camp.
How many kids do you think you've served since day one? Any idea?
It's got to be 3,000, 4,000 kids.
Wow, that's touching a lot of lives. Yeah, it's touching a lot of lives.
Yeah, it's really cool when you walk around the area with a Horsense shirt or Horsense hat, and someone will come and say, I went to that program. And of course, the kicker is sometimes they're like adults, and you go, oh my goodness.
Oh, is that right?
20 years went by pretty fast. Yeah, 20 years went by fast. But I told the story, one young lady came on as a volunteer, walked into, we have a trailer that has a restroom in it and a kitchen in it and a place to store some of our supplies. And she came in the trailer and she saw a picture that she had drawn when she went through camp on the wall. And she just teared up. And she says, I drew that picture.
Bet, yeah.
She got the rest of us tearing up as well. Wow. But over the course of years, that's a lot of young people whose lives have been touched by this program. And we're very, very proud of that.
Yeah. Peter, you had mentioned something about an anecdote from your very first camper.
Well, yes, Jessica Dixon. She was one of our first 8th graders, and she tells the story was that when we asked schools to select the students, they would do it in different ways. They would do, write a report on why you should go to the camp, what does it mean to you, so forth and so on. She actually wrote it, made an appointment with the principal, and said, I want to go to this camp.
Right.
And I want you to select me. Well, she came out to camp, and she actually listened to the story of Jeremy Cohn. I don't have horses, I don't have money, I don't have a location, and I don't have a plan, but let that not interfere with your dream. Let's try to work through all of those issues. And so she came out last year, wasn't it, Ellen? Mm-hmm. She came out last year. She graduated Northwestern University. She's going to the FBI.
Oh, man.
She wants to work at the State Department. She put in a year of, how would you say it?
Internship?
What's the, pardon?
Internship?
Well, not internship. She did overseas volunteerism. So I said to her, boy, those are really lofty. And she turned to me and smiled, and she said, "You always told me that don't let anything stop us from achieving our dream."
Is that right?
And it was like, oh my God, you just melted my heart, and it was just a great story. She's a wonderful young lady, and I can't imagine how old she is now, but we have a lot of those stories where all of a sudden you'll see someone that that's returned from college. They're home for the winter break, and they're saying, "Oh, we wanted to come out and volunteer again."
Nice. Yeah. So mostly the schools will send the students, right? And you said they how they choose their students varies school to school. Mm-hmm. But I also know that isn't a good portion of the students are they like underprivileged kids, or are they generally a pretty diverse group, or what's the group of the makeup of the students when they get there look like?
They're they are diverse, and they are usually selected from Title I schools.
Okay.
And so we'll also reach out to Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, foster care homes, to see if they have children that could possibly benefit from our programs. And so I would say 95% of our campers are from Title I schools.
Are they really? Okay.
So
never seen a horse before, I'm sure.
Not a lot of them. Some of them come out and say, "Oh, my grandfather had a horse," or but most of them have never been around horses. And some of them may go through the entire camp never getting on them.
Okay.
And they're still excited to walk through graduation, leading the horse around. We never ask a child to do anything that they don't feel comfortable with. We encourage them. And our ride crew members, like Debbie, if we have a child that's scared, we pick Debbie to go and take
is
care
that right?
Yeah. Oh, she's wonderful.
Good at that, yeah.
She's experienced with that, does she?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a rarity that by the end of the second week, they're not on a horse.
Right.
That's a rarity.
Yeah.
Because it's all about building self-confidence, and it's all about making them, take those, I'll call safe risks, because there's plenty of supervision there to make sure nothing goes wrong. Would have never had an incident. But I will tell you, it's a rare that we'll have a student that will go the entire course or not come back for some reason. COVID was an interesting time period, as it was for everybody.
Yeah.
But Peter made sure we had the proper policies in place. We greeted them. We all wore masks. We took temperatures. We're spaced out enough because you're on horseback, but of course there's still an opportunity to have some contact. And so we somehow survived the COVID years, changing up our plan a little bit because we couldn't rely on the schools to bus kids out.
Right.
So we had to have parents start coming on their own, and so we had to start inviting other groups in to kind of make up for the loss of having the school system identify and provide. But we got through those years, and I think we're even better today than we were prior to COVID because of some of the adjustments we made.
Really, it's great. The fact that you lasted through COVID and kept the program going is amazing. Life Outdoors helps, I guess, with that. How can the community help support Horsense? What do you need? What do you need from the community?
We always need volunteers.
Okay.
We always need ride crew volunteers. So anybody wanting to spend a Saturday out there that has equestrian capabilities, we'd love to have you. If you're a cook or if you just want to mentor a child, call us, sign up online. It's horsense.org.
Okay.
And there's a volunteer section there. And all of our efforts out there are done through donations. So, it's totally donation-based and volunteer-based. There's a few expenses that we have, just running the camp, the food, the setup of the camp, repairs and stuff like that, and the safety equipment. That runs into a costly dollar. So donations are wonderful. We're a qualified charity under the Arizona state tax.
Okay.
And so that's it. I mean, the Scottsdale Charros are our main sponsor, as well as McDonald's Ranch.
Yeah.
I would add a couple of things. The kids come away with art books. They come away with other reading material. They come away with shirts and hats. And backpacks and first aid kits, and so all that is somewhere where the funding goes, because funding doesn't go to volunteers, and so that's where we need the most help, I guess, is making sure we have the supplies necessary to make sure every child has a similar experience and a consistent experience. The only job I'll tell you is not available if anybody's listening and wants to volunteer is the job of being the old man on the rocking chair on the porch. That vacancy is filled. It's been filled for the last 20 years, so that's not put it for that one. But yeah, once again, I think that people that want to see what this program looks like should go to the website. Again, it's horsense.org to kind of, because there's plenty of photographs out there that will show exactly what we're all about, and Peter's leadership has just been magnificent.
Kevin, you know what I like about this too? It protects our Western heritage in Scottsdale, which is so cool to be able to do that way.
It does, and we've often asked ourselves as we move forward with all the technology and all the new things and the density that we have in Old Town, how do we preserve that? And this is a prime example of the way we can preserve that.
Great nonprofit helping kids, to develop in every way, and then still having that sort of horse character, heritage, and all that behind it. Pretty amazing. Yeah.
Isn't it funny how an experience with a horse and equine can really boost your confidence? Mm-hmm. Right, we've all seen that.
And we have. I remember L. Dunning. He was the gentleman that we took our program to, and he looked over it and he says, "Oh, this is pretty simple." I said, "Well, we're not teaching them to be rodeo guys. We just want them to build confidence and learn about respect and responsibility." And so Al used to come out in the mornings and just oversee it, and he's still a fan of the program.
That's great. Yeah. So do you guys do any major fundraisers, or is it just kind of support on an ongoing basis? Have you ever had a fundraiser like that people can plug into?
Well, we did last year. We had two occasions where the Elks Club in Scottsdale, they ran an event, a Sunday afternoon event, where they raised several $1,000. And then the Scottsdale Leadership, they did one of the flip projects.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah.
And they picked Horsense. And so they raised about $10,000.
Oh, very good.
They upgraded the educational area, created more seating, shade structures for us, brought utilities out.
Oh, really?
And it was fantastic. That was a big facelift for us. It allowed us to even consider expanding it to those weekly field trips.
Yeah, that's
because we had more teaching space.
I sure would encourage any groups out there looking for a worthy cause to give Horsense consideration. I mean, maybe we can get the word spread on that a little bit.
Absolutely. That's why we wanted to have Alan and Peter on today.
Exactly right.
To talk about it. Because once I heard about this program, and I know you've heard about it, we was like, we need to have these folks on to talk about it.
Perfect example of why we do these podcasts.
Yep.
Kevin, other questions for these guys today?
No questions. Just again, thank you so much for both of your contributions to our community. You've impacted our community in big ways. And so thank you so much from the community.
Peter, as a hospital executive, giving back to the community, and Alan, for all your public service to our city, we just say thanks for that, but even more so, thanks for all that you're doing with Horsense. Unbelievable program. We're just so thrilled to be able to shine a little bit of light on that today. And I know all of you, all our listeners out there, connect with all of this too. So we hope you will share this with your friends and peers. The good news that we bring to the podcast every week, and Horsense is certainly one great example of that. And then we'll see you next time for Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale.
Thank you, boys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.